I've been making adventure travel content since I was a 14-year-old kid. And in fact, this was my first ever camera, shooting on 8mm. But in this film, I want to share with you the type of equipment that I'm using today. And in fact, perhaps the contents of this one bum bag could contain the ultimate film gear to shoot your own travel adventure film. The weather today is horribly wet and cold, but actually it doesn't matter because my friends at Kunststof Bouldering in the city of Leiden in the Netherlands have allowed me to come in here and shoot this video. And not only that, they've given me some coffee and it even comes with a little biscuit. Well, you know what? It can't get much better than that. I just want to mention that no filming brand has endorsed this video. These are my own personal experiences and preferences. But remember that probably by the time you're actually watching this film, there's a new make or model out there, because ultimately these tech companies are there to make money. But it doesn't matter if you have an older or a different model. At the end of the day, it's what you do with it that counts. Remember that a craftsman always prefers his old tools. But I really just want to reiterate that it doesn't really matter about the tech. What really drives a film is its story, so much so that in this series of films of how to make your own adventure travel content, the next film is going to be just about that, how to work with story, because story is king and not the tech. What I find quite bizarre is that if you'd have known me before the pandemic, you would have seen that most of my equipment was huge. You know, most of my work back then was for National Geographic, and there was many an expedition where I'd be sort of trudging through a jungle, through a desert, or up a mountain, carrying, you know, a camera this big. Boy, have times changed. But it doesn't mean that today I'm compromising on quality. But one golden rule is that if it doesn't fit into my little famous bum bag, then it isn't going to come with me. This thing has to be able to fit around my waist, and that's my rule when I make adventure travel films. It's primarily about the language of understanding filmmaking and how to get the most out of your equipment. But talking about equipment, there simply isn't time to go into the individual points of each piece of equipment that I'm going to show you. I'm going to break that down in other tutorials on my channel, so subscribe for those to come. I guess no travel and adventure filming kit would be complete without an action camera, and in my case it's the DJI Action 4. And it was quite funny because I remember going to a trade show in Amsterdam called IBC when GoPro first launched, and no one really understood what these little action cameras were, because action cameras have suddenly revolutionized our industry and adventure travel filmmaking. But I actually remember using the first ever edition of GoPro, and it was to make a series, a documentary series about an electric racing car traveling from Alaska to the very bottom of Argentina. And I did that with a friend of mine called Claudio von Plunter, who you may know if you've seen the Long Way Down series with Ewan McGregor. But anyway, with that first ever GoPro, I remember there were no screens. So what you had to do was basically try and judge a shot, shoot something, take the GoPro off, plug it into a laptop, look at the footage and go, actually, let's move the camera sort of 1 inch to the left. Boy, have things changed. For me, I have decided to go down the DJI ecosystem. It just works for me. I suppose it's almost like saying Apple versus Android. What I do like about DJI is I just find them pretty much easy to work with. I find the menus easy, I find they interact very easily. You know, when you understand one piece of equipment, you understand another piece of equipment. And at the end of the day, I know there are pros and cons with other brands, but what really matters is that the piece of equipment that you have is easy to work with, especially if you're working in a stressful environment, like in bad weather, extreme cold, rain, whatever. You just want the equipment to work and not start messing around with menus and connections. So I want to give you a basic rundown, why I like the Action 4. I'm just going to give you the rough basics, but I'm not going to go into too much detail because, like I said, we simply don't have time to show you every little function in the DJI Action 4. But here are my main USPs about why I like it. And I guess the first thing I can say about this baby is that it's tough, all right? It's an action camera. It's designed to be thrown around, knocked around. I mean, that's what these things are built for. But especially when you wrap it and contain it in the small rig cage, which is made from a tough metal alloy, this thing is now pretty much almost bomb-proof. The other thing is that this thing is waterproof down to 18 meters, just as it is without an additional waterproof cage. That is an insane depth to take an action camera down to, 18 meters. It's also rated down to a temperature of -20, which is an insane temperature to be able for a camera to work in. You know, that is really going to raise the game when it comes to creating adventure content in the colder climates. It also records 4K at 120 frames per second, which is pretty awesome when it comes to shooting, you know, films like mountain biking, surfing or skiing. That really will change your production values. You know, of course, I know there are many other brands out there, and GoPro is definitely the market leader. But like I said, I just like the DJI ecosystem. It works for me. There is no other reason, just the fact that I find it easy to work with. And for me, that is the most important thing. And like I said, DJI haven't endorsed this video. It's just what I like. Again, all the technical aspects I'm really going to cover and delve into in another film. And I'm also going to look at how I could do, for example, say a 10-day adventure and just need 3 batteries by using a technique that I was taught when I did my internship at the BBC called a mental TV. And I want to unpack that more in detail in another video. Now, the next piece of kit that I always carry with me in my bum bag to make adventure travel films is really now become a little bit of a game changer. And you probably guessed, it's probably the DJI Pocket 3. Now, I had the Pocket 1, and to be honest, I didn't actually like it. But for me, the Pocket 3 is a game changer. Primarily reason for that is because of its 1-inch sensor. The pictures just look beautiful. But actually, I don't really use it that much for vlogging, and I'll tell you why later. But what I do use it for is to create cinematic shots when on the road. This thing is basically an action camera with a gimbal, and with a gimbal, a 3-axis gimbal, you can create really beautiful cinematic shots that will just enhance your video. And I'm going to be showing you my favorite gimbal moves again in another video. I just can't cram everything into one film, so please bear with me, because back in the day, the alternatives, well, not even back in the day, nowadays, if you want to do a gimbal shot, you know, without the Pocket 3, it basically means you've got to hike this thing up a mountain. Now, I'm not going to put this in my backpack just to create a beautiful cinematic shot. The Pocket 3, on the other hand, is a fantastic alternative, and I absolutely love it. So if you were to actually get one of these, I would suggest that you bite the bullet and spend a little bit more cash, because then you get some pretty cool accessories. For example, okay, you get this little battery extender handle, which obviously extends the life of the Pocket 3. You get a little nifty little mini tripod, which is great because then you can put it on the ground and do all kinds of things. And you also get a microphone, and I'll come back to that later. So I mentioned why I don't use the Pocket 3 for vlogging primarily. I mean, I do use it, but it's not my primary choice. My primary choice is actually the Action 4 that I'm using at the moment. And that's because generally, as you know, the type of content that I do on my channel is out there in the field. It's real adventure travel content. And the thing I love the most about the Action 4 is it's an action camera. It's robust and tough. And you know, I could be using it in bad weather, in the rain. I could be using it in a very dusty or very damp and sort of humid environment. And I just find that the Pocket 3, although it's great to be used in a very safe, controlled environment like a city, for example, I just don't want to damage it. And that's why I use my Action 4 as my primary vlogging camera. It's just my choice. You know, that the Action 4 is pretty tough. And if it's wrapped up in a small rig metal cage, they're pretty much bomb-proof. And I just don't want to damage or drop or just ruin my Pocket 3 camera. I want to use that for those super creative, fun shots, but get all of the hard vlogging done within my Action 4. So here are some USPs when it comes to purchasing the Pocket 3. So here are some of my technical USPs about the Pocket 3. Just a basic rundown. Like I said, it has a 1-inch sensor, which gives it an incredible increased dynamic range. The pictures look pretty amazing. It can also shoot in vertical mode, which is really, really handy. And it's really good in coping in low light due to that increased sensor. It also can record in 10-bit D-Log-M, which gives you more capabilities, more flexibility when you want to color grade. The other thing that I love, which is pretty nifty, so you can film yourself, you know, without the need of having, you know, a friend help you, is that it can face track. All you need to do is put the camera down and it will follow your actions, follow you around wherever you go. That is pretty handy. So both cameras, the Action 4 and the Pocket 3, have excellent tools if you want to manipulate time. Both cameras have time-lapse and hyperlapse, and the Pocket 3 has a really cool function called motion lapse. And I absolutely love these tools. They really do raise the standard of your production. And in fact, I've got a film planned when I'm going to go to Scotland, and I'm going to shoot some really awesome time-lapsing sequences, motion-lapsing sequences, and hyperlapsing sequences. And I'm going to explain how I get the most out of these cameras when I go and visit the Highlands of Scotland. That's going to be a really exciting video that I'm really looking forward to making. And another thing that makes them really easy to use, both the Action 4 and the Pocket 3, is that you can control them via the DJI Mimo app. And there's a bunch of features that the app does that perhaps you can't access directly from the cameras. So I really do recommend, if you do purchase these two pieces of kit, make sure you get the app. Well, actually, in fact, you need the app if you want to do firmware updates and stuff like that. But the DJI Mimo app is a great additional piece of kit to have. But of course you need a phone, but who doesn't have a phone anyway? So get the app. Now, unfortunately, both the Pocket 3 and the Action 4 do have an incredible weakness. And in fact, it is their Achilles heel. And it's also the Achilles heel of smartphones as well. And that's recording sound. You know, you can get away with bad images, but you can't get away with bad sound. You know, back in the broadcast day, when I was working for TV channels, we would of course have a dedicated sound recordist. In fact, quite often I would do that as a director. But if you're creating your own solo content, you simply don't have that luxury, and you can only use what you can carry with you, which is why I love the new DJI. Again, I'm bought into the ecosystem, I know, but the DJI Mic 2. Now, I also love the Australian brand called Rode, and they do some excellent microphones, so do check out what they have available. But I'm really loving currently the DJI Mic 2. I guess the first thing I can say is that you can connect them in a variety of ways. You could use a 3.5 mini jack, or you could use a Lightning for an iPhone, or USB-C, or you can just connect them via Bluetooth to pretty much any Bluetooth compatible device. That does, however, use, you know, a little bit more battery life, but it is pretty handy. The other thing that I really love is that it comes with its own charging case. Not only does this case keep all your gear safe, but obviously, like I said, it's a charging case and will, I think, top up your devices about 2.5 times, which is really cool. The mic itself comes with a really effective wind jammer, which is essential for blocking out wind noise, especially when you're creating adventure travel content. And I guess the other last thing that I could mention, why I really love them, is that the actual microphone itself can can record sound internally. And you know, that's great if you want to have a backup of the sound that you recorded on your travels. But also, and what I do, is that you can actually record wild track separately. And wild track is essential if you want to cover those audio jump cuts. And I'm going to make a film separately about wild track later, because it is pretty much an essential thing to know as a filmmaker. But these are the main reasons why I do love the DJI Mic 2. It really is a nifty piece of kit. So for me, when I'm creating my own travel adventure content, and indeed now as I'm shooting at the moment, I do love having a personal microphone on me. It makes the job of recording sound so much easier. And to be honest, if you're going to do your own travel adventure film, you pretty much can't do without it. Otherwise, the audience simply isn't going to hear what you're saying. And a shot that I do love as well is that you can actually talk to your camera, you know, 5, 10, 15 meters away. And with that kind of thing, you need a radio mic. And so the last major piece of equipment that I have in my little bum bag is an absolute game changer. Okay, any guesses what you think might be in here? Well, of course, it's a drone. Okay, what I find quite funny is that, you know, when I first started my career, is that if you wanted to do an aerial shot, you'd have to rent a helicopter, or quite often, if you wanted to film wildlife, we'd have to rent a hot air balloon. But now, with 249 grams, you've got your own helicopter. It's absolutely insane what you can do with drones. Of course, there are restrictions and they're becoming more and more frequent. There are laws and regulations that you have to adhere to. There's no fly zones. There's all kinds of bureaucracy attached. With flying a drone, you have to check the individual rules and regulations of the country, and indeed the actual place that you're in, for example, a national park or whatever, you have to check the rules. And ideally, you obtain a pilot's license, which I have. But drones are an absolute game changer. You may have also seen the documentary I recently posted on my channel called Everest Base Camp: The Shocking Truth. And in that, I talk about drones because there were many regulations about flying drones within the Khumbu National Park. Now, you could do it, but you would need to obtain a permit. And I decided not to go down that route. There was a lot of bureaucracy involved in that. But nonetheless, you do have to adhere to the rules and regulations before launching this piece of kit. And in fact, actually, in many places in the world, in fact, where I am now, it won't take off because it's a no-fly zone. There's actual software that will not allow this thing to lift off because I'm not that far from the biggest airport in the Netherlands called Schiphol, and it won't take off. I absolutely love my Mini 3 Pro. It really is a game changer. And in fact, the first time I ever used it was a film that I absolutely love on my channel, and it's about an Iron Age fort in Scotland. And the drone just allowed me to create some really high production values. So I'll place a link in the description. In fact, I'll place a link at the end of this film, and you can check out what I was able to do with just a little 249 gram drone. These things will change your production. Of course, you know what I'm going to say. I can't fully explain how to use a drone in this one little film, and I really am going to unpack how I achieve all of my drone content in other films to come on my channel. I wish I could cram it all into one film, but I can't. I can't cover an action camera, a Pocket 3, a microphone and a drone in one film. So bear with me, stay tuned. All of these aspects I'm really going to unpack and discover more on my channel. So do stay tuned for those. So there we are. These are the 4 main pieces of kit that I use to make my own travel adventure content. The Action 4, the Pocket 3, the Mic 2, and my lovely little drone. And for me, those 4 pieces of kit are absolute game changers. But there's a few little bits and bobs that I also carry with me in my trusty bum bag. And one of them is a light. And this is from a brand called Small Rig, and I absolutely love it. And it mounts directly on most of the equipment that I'm using, particularly my Action 4. And I carry a light because, you know, these cameras, because of their large sensors, are fantastic at working in low light. But at the end of the day, that will compromise a little bit on picture quality. So if I was to be filming something at night, perhaps a sequence by a tent or something, having a little light like this is a really nifty piece of kit. Of course, you can use like, you know, like a headlamp or something like that, head torch, but yeah, it's a little bit too bright. But with this, I can control it, and it's a great additional piece of kit, and it's like light, and it fits nicely in my bum bag. The other thing that I carry with me is actually just a power bank, you know, because then I can charge things on the run as well if I want to top up the power on my Mic 2 or even my Pocket 3. I've got a little power bank, and this is from a brand that I absolutely love called Sunsplice. I'll place a link in the description to these guys because these guys are really great. And then I think the last thing that I squeeze into my bum bag is actually a really, really important piece of kit. And as a professional filmmaker, it's highly, highly overlooked, because it doesn't matter how good your cameras are. If you have a dirty lens, they're pretty much useless. So I always carry with me lens cloths, and I put these in waterproof bags, and a little bit of lens cleaner so I can, you know, polish up my lenses. Well, that's pretty much it. That's what I carry with me in my bum bag. Like I said, if it doesn't fit in my bum bag, it ain't going with me. I know I've crammed lots into this first film about how I make adventure travel content, and boy, I've got so many interesting anecdotes and tips and tricks that I really want to share with the adventure community. And like I said, I really want to help and inspire my fellow adventurers to go out there and create their own content. So coming soon, there are tons more tutorials, so please subscribe to that one. And don't forget, please, hashtag adventure travel filmmaking. I'll see you in the next film, and I think I'm gonna have another cappuccino.